1976 Back to Midway is an action shooter VR game by Ivanovich Games, developers of Operation Warcade and Touring Carts. It is due to be released on December 10 for $14.99. Back to Midway harks back to retro top-down arcade shooters of the 80s and 90s, but then takes them to new levels of immersion. It really tries to capture the dreams of playing those simple arcade machines back in the 80s and give players who would wonder what it would be like to actually be the pilot in the protagonist's vehicle. Think 1942 on a ridiculous amount of some genetically modified super steroids from the future, and you might come close to what this experience offers. I had a chance to play the beta version of this game, and that's what I'm showing here. Things may be tweaked before its release, but I didn't experience any bugs or performance issues even in this pre-release version. With that, let's jump in and take an initial look at the beta release of this game.
Immersed Robot.
I decided to play the game using the recommended gamepad method, as this seemed to make sense for me. I'm not a gigantic fan of using VR motion controllers to manually move a control stick which I can't actually feel in real life. That lack of tangible feedback creates a sense of separation from the game that isn't easy to overcome in my opinion. I put up with it in No Man's Sky, simply because I don't get a choice in that game unfortunately. Back to Midway itself is set in, as you might imagine, 1976, in an alternate dystopian reality where the Nazis won World War II. Allied scientists have since analyzed that it was actually a very small number of air combat missions, which made all the difference, so your task is to travel back in time, using an arcade machine-like simulator, together with an authentic flux capacitor of course, and replay these missions to secure victory. That's a pretty interesting, if contrived, concept. But it makes sense in the world the game presents you with. Although it looks 2D on this video, the huge screen is actually three-dimensional and is very impressive to look at. Let's take a look at a few minutes of gameplay now.
Guns upgraded. Guns upgraded. Power shield.
With a specific collectible you get the ability to enter an immersion zone setting. This switches gameplay from either first person or behind the plane third-person view. Fans of Operation Warcade will be familiar with a similar kind of concept which that game also played with. This effect breaks up gameplay in a very satisfying way and, like Liam Neeson, requires you to develop a very specific set of skills for both areas. To be honest, the straightforward top-down sections are the most enjoyable to actually play for me. But I do think the game benefits overall from having this variety in gameplay, and it makes you appreciate the more traditional, albeit incredible-looking, standard sections. Let's take a look at some more gameplay now.
Immersion zone complete. Presence incoming. Warning.
Boss battles end each level as you might expect, and these are a relatively straightforward affair in which you have to destroy the projectile turrets in several waves before you defeat them. As alluded to at the beginning of this video, you do get the option to play this game using VR motion controllers. By doing this, you can choose to either use the thumbsticks on the controllers to operate the plane, or you can actually reach out and operate the virtual flight stick in-game. Although not my own preference, it is great to have these options built in. HOTAS support is also being added and should be part of the game when it releases on December 10th. A quick note on performance. This game runs with zero issues, and I don't believe it would be too demanding on even relatively low-end systems. The Steam page lists a recommended system of an Intel i5-4590 CPU or equivalent and a GTX 970 GPU or equivalent, which is actually the baseline PC system required for most VR content back in 2016, so anybody should be fine to experience this title, as it was meant to be played. The top-down sections are graphically stunning, and the stereoscopic effects add a superficial, but no less real sense of enjoyment while playing. The first and third-person sections are still enjoyable, but feel a little less impressive for whatever reason. At least that's my opinion after this initial look at the beta. I'd like to emphasize that, while I enjoyed the top-down sections more, I still feel that the variety and mix-up which the immersion zone sections offer is vital to how this game plays overall. I definitely think the game would be lacking without them. Something else to mention is how each section of the immersion zone seems to add new and different mechanics to the game, since you find yourself in various types of aircraft. On a bombing mission, for example, you find yourself at one point in the machine gun turret of the bomber aircraft. I didn't feel bored while playing this game for even an instant, and it seems to consciously push against you ever feeling secure or accustomed to what you're experiencing. If ever you feel like it's time for a section to end and move on, it does. There is very little hanging around, or waiting, or wishing a section would end. This game really keeps things moving fast, and I love that about it. My criticisms around the beta version of the game I had access to are actually pretty minimal. As a fan of retro gaming, this fed into that particular interest of mine perfectly. I suppose the immersion zone areas are the least interesting to me personally, but I have to reiterate that the game is absolutely a better experience for including them and breaking up any kind of monotony you might feel. One thing I want to mention is the fact that displaying this footage on screen here, the game looks incredibly 2D and underwhelming in the top-down sections. That is not the experience you get in VR. Every enemy, explosion and effect pops when playing in your headset, and I really can't emphasize that point enough. If there was any game that really needs to be experienced, then it's this one. I was a fan of Operation Warcade before this, and I think this game takes things to a suitable next level. I can't wait to see what's next. Any fan of retro gaming, top-down shooting, or great fast-moving experiences need to keep their eye on this. These are first impressions of the beta, so keep that in mind. But so far, I'm definitely impressed. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. Please hesitantly tap the like button, and if it's not too much of an inconvenience, then please also subscribe to this channel for more VR-focused content. I'll see you all on the flippity flip.